Hi, and welcome to this quick tool review. This time around we have a really cool couple items, but before we get to those, sticker exchange. So I sent some stickers out to some other YouTubers. They sent them back to me. I really appreciate that. I solicited a couple, and I was solicited by one of the others, and so it's always great to get stickers back. It's a fun little thing that the YouTube machinists like to do. Just sort of cross-advertise our channels and just share stickers. I'm going to get a board up soon in my garage where I can show off all the stickers I've gotten, which I've gotten quite a few, and I'm really quite proud of them. And it's a really nice thing because it's a really tight community, very generous people, generous with both gifts and with knowledge. So moving on, Metalworks Machine Shop, a couple stickers. Ragsdale Creek Workshop, really nice finish on this one. Interesting, feels sort of like a matte vinyl. Everett's Workshop. So check out those channels. Everyone has something cool to offer. And let's move on to the tool review this week. First up, never have enough clamping solutions over at the mill. And so I picked up a couple of these Besseys that I saw. They're kind of a neat design. And they don't require the the step block that you have to put in back, and they can still grab some pretty big items. So you mount them like this and they press down. Now for me, I don't want to damage my ways, so these are just roughly sanded. So I would still put a piece of metal on my ways, but these have a lot of latitude. So these are the half inch version, and it's kind of a neat design. This is captive. It looks like they just sort of bent it in a little bit, so it has a little bit of sliding range there. And so this is the long model, and here is the short model for the half-inch 13. And they're a little bit pricey, not insane. I think they're around 20 some bucks each was the best price I could find online. So I did pick up a set. This one opens a little bit differently, comes out the end. So these are the large and the small versions of this clamp. So this ends on the table, this ends on the part. And again, you don't need to use the step block, which is pretty handy. So I got two of each of those, and we'll head over to the mill and I'll show you an example of those when we get over there on how they're used. And I'm sure there's more uses than I'm even aware of, but pretty handy part to have. Like I said, never have enough clamping solutions. The last project I worked on, I ran out of clamps. So this is an attempt to help solve that problem in the future. Next tool is also for the mill, and it's for the vise. And you know, when you're clamping irregular shaped parts, you've got to go to all kinds of creative ways to deal with that. This product, made in America by someone that was very ingenious, came up with a similar product, sort of like the screwy ball. You know, when you're doing an irregular shaped part, a lot of times, like when you're trying to even square up stock, you put in a piece of copper wire, like 12 gauge copper wire, or you can use a ball bearing, and the screwy ball is great because it's a flat-sided ball bearing. This is another solution for that similar problem. And what it is a pair of parallel plates that are spring-loaded together with a ball bearing between them. So they claim to be able to clamp all kinds of irregularly shaped parts. You can see how it'll go at just about any angle, but the force is only placed upon the part across a single line, or a single point ideally if the balls were perfect. So we'll give these a shot too. We'll head over to the mill and see how these work out. Before we go completely, I bought this drill bit off eBay. It said it was used but in good shape, and I looked, they had a close-up of the flutes, and the flutes looked all right. There's a little chip on one here, but that can be reground. And I was thinking, oh, what a good find. It was a good deal. Well, I didn't look closely at this end. Look at that. What kind of terrible thing happened to this thing to actually twist the tine on this thing? That's crazy. So I'm gonna have to do something about that in order to use it at all, because it won't even fit into the MT holder adapter I've got for my lathe. So anyways, always beware on eBay. Sometimes they show you pictures of everything but what you really need to see. All right, so here's my two Bessey clamps, and here's the small one in place, just with an example part through it on there. Again, this is what I'm talking about, protecting the ways. Even if this had been completely on one of the flats, I would still have a piece of metal protect it, because I try not to scratch up my ways, because they are a reference surface, so you don't want to damage it. This one's holding really nicely, and I barely cranked it at all. This one, you're probably wondering why I didn't just throw a stud on there and demonstrate it as well. Well, I was going to, except that one little problem. So these are cast, look like cast steel, and I can't get the stud through them at all. There's so much crap in the holes, they didn't even bother checking it or cleaning them out. Very sloppy manufacturing. Here's the other one, just in case you think it was a fluke. It doesn't go all the way through either, and this one, this piece pops off, which it's not supposed to. I think it's supposed to stay intact, but in any case, it sort of catches a little bit, but comes off easily. Really, really rough sanding job on here. They are made in China, so shame on Bessey for charging a premium price for a mediocre quality delivered product. See, made in China for the big one as well. Big, bold letters coming from Bessey USA, though, in case you can't see that. Bessey USA, and then down here, made in China. Anyways, so still useful. Makes the price a little bit harder to swallow, and if I could find a Chinese clone which probably be identical to these, I probably would buy it, although it may not be cast steel. These look like cast steel instead of cast iron. I'm not 100% certain of that fact, though. But in any case, I guess I'm glad I've got them, but I'm a little disappointed at the quality for the price. All right, so here's a really common procedure in machining, which is we are going to square up a piece of stock that has just been cut, or it's in this case hot rolled, and I would use a piece of copper wire in the vise jaws, because this side can't be trusted. Trusting my back face of my rear jaw as my reference, machine it, flip it, and still use this until you get two flat and parallel surfaces. This is the traditional approach, at least the way I was taught. So let's see where the Quadralell comes into play here and see how it will perform on a very simple and easy example. All right, for this really simple case, that was very easy. All I did was just slide this to the bottom, put my part in that I'm going to work on, and it initially came up at a little bit of an angle, but all I did was just square that, because this thing tends to hold in whatever position you leave it in pretty darn well. Right now the force, because the ball bearing is low, I probably want a smaller parallel than I've got here. The force is pushing towards the bottom of this part, which is not ideal. You would rather have it down the center line, so it would push it as flush as you can with the rear. So if I raise this up a little bit, let's see, there we go, and that is holding really firmly. That is really in there. Okay, so this was a really simple example. Now, if I was going to machine off the top of this, I'd want this a little bit lower than this. But you're getting the idea. It's working pretty well so far. This, of course, is the simplest example. Alrighty, so let's give a little bit more challenging piece. So using the copper wire trick with this wouldn't work very well. You could use the ball bearing. That solution would work. So let's try this guy. Take its flattest side, put it towards the back, and tighten it down. And it, holding the flat against the parallel, it's gripping really well. I was concerned actually that this thing might want to actually squirt the part out, because now some of the force, besides the jaw force pushing the part into the fixed jaw, some of the force is going along this direction. And that's going to want to squirt the part out, but it is in there. So that's a really handy feature. You also can do it vertically because it's a ball bearing and it's a single point. So I need a really thin parallel. Hold on one second. So I need something to set this on the middle, because you do want the ball to push right where you're working. So let's try this. So I hold it flat to both the bottom and the rear, and again, it's clamping perfectly. And that is a nice solid hold there. I think you're going to always want to keep the part as close to the center of the part, as close to the center of the ball bearing as you possibly can. That'll try and prevent squirt out, because again, now it wants to squirt up. But it seems to be holding really well. I need to do some heavy machining on it and see how it holds when you're putting some real force on it. There are some limitations with it, however. If I wanted to do this part, which is the first one I cut, kind of exceed the range of, oh, it worked in the vertical thing, in the vertical situation. Wow, that's actually still really tight. If you didn't have to do really tough machining on there, that's actually in there. I tried to hold it horizontally, and it exceeded the range of the unit. So it can't, this side touches before it reaches. So I suppose you could possibly flip this. No, you won't be able to flip vertically, it wouldn't fit. So there are limitations to it, but it will do the same angle vertically, which is kind of crazy to me. I think if you were trying to hold this, also I think I would try, if you didn't have to work on that side of the part, I think I'd prefer to have it want to squirt the part down, which would be this sort of angle, like this. It can hold the part like that. But as you saw before, it can also hold the part flip the other way. And I think in all of these extreme angle cases, you need to be very careful, because there is, in this case, force trying to push the part right out of the vise. It's not anywhere near as strong as a part square in the vise jaws, but in a pinch, this could work. I'm going to give the Quadralell a big thumbs up. I think that is a pretty cool tool. I found it on eBay. You search for Quadralell and you can pick it up. The information, there's their website right there. That's a really nice tool for my arsenal. I'm really pleased about it. It's a really simple design, but very creative. So he's got a couple pins that hold the springs that keep the two plates pressed against the ball bearing, so you don't have to worry about that falling apart while you're trying to use it. I think that's a big thumbs up. These guys, not as excited about them. If I could find a clone of them, I might consider that, because paying the Bessey price for a part that's finished as poorly as this, and for parts that won't even fit the 1/2-inch bolt that they were designed to hold, shame on Bessey. I'm giving that a thumbs down for the price. They're still a useful clamp design, but I don't think they're worth the price they charge. Anyways, hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.